Islam Morris.
Wow.
Five on the left, two on the right. Allah, Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe.
Father of love.
Father of love.
Truth.
Peace.
Freedom. And justice. Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector.
My guide.
guide,
and my salvation.
and my salvation.
By night. And by day. Through our holy prophet. Noble Jew Ali. Islam. Islam Moors. Prophet warns all governors, Muslims. Prophet warns all Muslims, governors ordered to read proclamation at each meeting. I hereby inform all members that they must end all radical agitating speeches while at work, in their homes, or on the streets. We are for peace and not destruction. Stop flashing your cards at Europeans. It causes confusion. Remember, your card is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be of severe consequence. We are for love, truth, peace, freedom, and when these principles are violated, justice must then take its course. Any member or group of members who hold malicious feelings toward the temple or the prophet, or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement, will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by their prophet. If they lose confidence in their prophet, they should turn in their card and button, cease wearing their turban and fez, and return to the state where I, the prophet, found you. This is a holy and divine movement founded by the prophet Noble Jew Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the temple is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out a divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part in protecting their prophet and the temple. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet through the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. Noble Jew Ali. Islam. Yo, you put, that's not the AC running?
Why? It feels cold in here.
Yeah, you sure?
No, it was heat.
Double
check.
check.
I know, it's fucked up.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on.
You know what I think's going on? The real problem is that, you know what I mean about all life, like we basically kept the place very cold, right?
Yeah,
it's just, you're now settling in to a room temperature, but it's probably like 19 degrees.
Yeah, it's probably 19 or something, yeah. To be proclaimed at every meeting. Islam. I'm glad to know that I have a few faithful Moors among you all, and I desire for them to know the truth and the divine truth. There is a host of jealousy about me and the movement now by the same people of our side of the nation that claim I was only a joke and unreal. But now, since they have found out from the government officials and the nations of the earth that this is the only sole foundation that all Asiatics must depend upon for their earthly salvation as American citizens, they are working every scheme that they can to disqualify me so they may take charge of the situation. I have notified all these things to you long ago in the past. It is through the faithful Moors that attribute to the movement and uplifting funds. The ones that paid their divine respect to me and the movement will be remembered. That is why I am calling upon all faithful Moors to increase their faithfulness to me, your prophet, and your divine Moorish movement. I need finance and I need it badly. Never before have I needed finance so badly as I do at present, so I can shove aside the discord that is facing the nation. It all comes through jealousy because of my fame and nobility. The nations of the earth, the nations of the world will not recognize the movement without I, the prophet, being head. It has been proven by my works which I have performed in the past few years. Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Islam. To the members of the Moorish Science Temple of America, Islam. This is the instruction from your Prophet Noble Jew Ali. Be faithful unto your forefathers' divine and national creed that you would be blessed for your good deeds that you sow in the flesh. Allah is the one that judges the world, and his judgment is now on. But the weak can comprehend it not. The end of time is drawing near, so says Allah to his divine prophet, I, Noble Jew Ali, and that's why many hearts have been turned to stone. Many have eyes to see, but cannot see, ears to hear, but cannot hear, lest they would be confounded of their sins. These are trying hours now, dear Moors, and every evil spirit is moving, and they are trying every weak mind to overthrow and drag out the true foundation that has been laid, and to cause confusion in the minds of the ones that do believe. But if you have the true love of Allah and the spirit of your forefathers, you fear not what you hear or see, but would sacrifice the utmost of your very life to protect your movement and your prophet. Watch your enemies, dear Moors. Your enemies are the ones that speak against your prophet and ridicule him to the very lowest, and the ones that speak against your divine and national principles of your temples. Act accordingly, and Allah would bless you for your good work. Peace, your divine prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Islam. Next weekend, 20th, we have our vernal equinox event over at Breakwater Park in Kingston. Our little sunrise ritual that we do every year. So we want to the ritual is basically writing down 3 things that you're looking forward to manifesting for the new year, and then burning it at sunrise on the 20th. And as we know, 21st is New Year, so bringing the New Year with some good energy. No, not Kingston, New York, Kingston, Ontario. And 27th of the month, we're going to be doing town hall. It's going to be here at the temple. So we're putting it out there for all the Moors to try to make themselves present for the town hall on that day, as we're not going to be doing it online. That's going to be open door. Any other updates?
No. Hamilton on the April the 3rd, September 3rd. Dates to follow. We will be out in Hamilton, just to come. And then April 27th, we'll be out in Ajax. So that's the schedule for the next month and a half, 2 months.
Just gone. Was still going through this Message of Aquaria book, the significance and mission of the Aquarian age, and they had a chapter in here called Man Know Thyself. So what I've been trying to do with this is last week we did the true priesthood, talking about dealing with the prophets and what that entails. And this week, Man Know Thyself, because we have a Quran chapter as that, so we can put these 2 things together just to show that, you know, what we already know, that Drew Ali was on point with what he presented to the Moors. If all these different New Age groups and whatever are going to be presenting teachings that are relative to his. So this is Man Know Thyself. Saith the great law, in order to become the knower of all self, thou hast first of self to be the knower. To reach the knowledge of that self, thou hast to give up self to non-self, being a non-being. The voice of the silence, Madame Blavatsky. Ignorance is the cause of imperfection. Men do not know themselves, and therefore they do not understand the things of their inner world. Each man has the essence of God and all the wisdom and power of the world in himself. Paracelsus. Every student of mysticism is familiar with the axiom that man is a microcosm of the macrocosm, and has grown familiar with the idea, at least in a superficial way, that in some mysterious manner, man is an epitome of the universe. Let us try to comprehend this idea and make it a greater reality, a more vital help toward the unfoldment of our inner life. For a fundamental object of mysticism is to find back of everything the reality which gives it life. This is as true of the trite axiom or as idea as of anything in the manifested universe. realize that life here in the physical world is not something separate from life in the higher realms, but is simply a continuation of that life downward into a denser medium of expression. We also find that the body is not a mere mechanism, but a living and highly intelligent animal with the functions, desires, appetites, and habits of any animal. Hence, it needs training and control, just as does any other hybrid animal, if it is to become a willing, obedient, and efficient servant of its Lord and Master. Hence, through the directing power of thought, we should strive to make the body express our highest ideals, become an embodiment of the real self. Yet, if after complying with all the laws of the physical health, the body still seems to lack, we should strive to hold vitally to the thought that we are standing in the glowing stream of the one life, reaching out and gathering up and assimilating the forces of the river of life as a rose gathers up from the soul, and the sun the nourishment that goes to make up its life abundant, and feel this divine life gently permeating and visualizing us and fulfilling all our needs. So that again goes back to what we were just talking about with the ritual on the solstice, recognizing that there's a lot that we can do. There's a lot that we're doing, but there's still lacking in areas. So, this is the same thing that they're saying as the rose gathering from the earth, gathering from the water, gathering from the other life forms around it in order to be what it is. We're doing that same thing, saying we're going to go do the ritual. We're going to draw from the energies around us in order to do what we're supposed to do. With town hall, trying to have all the Moors together in one place so that we can draw from each other and figure out how we're supposed to do these things that we're doing. The things that we were talking about with the OAS, realizing that, the atmosphere or the situation that's at hand right now doesn't allow us to go to the individuals that we should be able to go to and get remedy. So we have to go outside of the norm in order to try to extract these minerals, these different things needed for us to be in a better place than we see ourselves. The idea of when we were talking about last week with the status and the non-status, and that there's actually a position of a non-status Indian. There's actually individuals who are indigenous that don't live on a reserve, but the reserve people are getting the benefits that the non-status people seem to not be able to get or have a hard time accessing due to, different things that have taken place. People, I was talking to one of the Moors yesterday, and he sent me a reference of the indigenous people that they call today, who they qualify as the indigenous people, recognizing that we're their grandparents, recognizing that they made arrangements with Europeans to give them land, give them certain things that they shouldn't have even been doing because they're not the grandparents. You know what I mean? But then you ask the question, well, what happened to the grandparents? Well, if all of them are Negro or whatever, then somebody's gonna step in and take over that role, whether they're qualified for it, whether they're elected to it, whatever the case. Somebody's gonna take over that role and play it as if they're in that position, right? But I find it interesting that with them talking about the rose gathering from the soil and the sun, all the different nourishments, and then us trying to get all these different, like even when we look at the literature, we're not just limited to our Quran only. You know what I mean? There's other places that we're going to go and extract information from for us to figure this stuff out. Right? Any comments or questions on that? After considering the needs of the body, we must recognize those of the mental expression of the indwelling real self. We must learn to discriminate and recognize those thoughts that desire, which well up in our minds from the subconscious mind or the mind of the animal self, whose seat is in the solar plexus, and realize that they are not our thoughts and desires, but those of the animal body, asking us to recognize and gratify them. Many students, not understanding its nature and functions, concentrate on the solar plexus as an effort to attain spiritual enlightenment. This being the center of the animal consciousness, concentrating upon it quickens the forces of the animal nature. And if at the same time the student is trying to master that nature, the conflict is apt to bring about an unbalanced condition. It is much like speaking kindly to a dog to get him to perform his best tricks and then beating him for performing. It is the forces from the physical sun, together with astral currents, which center in on the solar plexus, and not the forces from the spiritual sun. And since the function of the physical sun is to bring forth the physical life in nature, concentration upon its center in the body naturally stimulates our physical force, not our spiritual. The focus of the spiritual sun is in the heart. Hence, if we desire to stimulate our spiritual growth, we should not concentrate upon the solar plexus, but upon the heart. Not, however, upon the physical heart, but upon the development and expression of the heart qualities. And going again back to Juali and learning to love instead of hate, learning that when man honors man, he honors Allah. When the Holy Covenant, look after each other, because we're pretty much all we have, right? And again, with the idea of learning to love instead of hate, we're working with the forces of the spiritual sun. We're working with heart chakra and above, opposed to the idea of starting at the solar plexus and moving up from there, right? Actually starting at the heart. We must recognize the currents of thought which come from the rational mind, the intellect of the personality, which operates through the cortex of the brain as the subconscious does through the ganglia of the solar plexus, both containing similar tripolar nerve cells, as it seeks for the comfort and aggrandizement of the personal self. This aspect of the mind also needs training and control, for it often fails to understand, hence doubts, worries, and becomes discouraged. Hence, just as the subconscious mind must be taught to submit its desires to our decision, so must the rational mind be taught to submit to and rely confidently upon the guidance of the higher superconscious or spiritual mind of the soul, which guidance is always given in answer to aspirations and sincere prayer for guidance. So as we evolve, we're training and controlling. We're trying to under overstand. We're trying to eliminate doubts, eliminate worries, and not be discouraged. So one of the things when Omar and I were coming up here earlier today, we were talking about like what are we, and we'll put this out there. What are we in this for? Like what are we really seeing as
what is this? What are you doing there? What's the question?
As the individual, right? Being that we're proclaimed and we are exercising our culture, what are we here for? Is it being here for spiritual enlightenment, being here for intellectual enlightenment, being here because we've been everywhere else and this is where it's at, but we just want to put it up just to get some ideas. Any more is in the chat have anything, please put it in there in all class. But what are we here for as far as saying that we're Moors and understanding the truth about our nationality and birthrights?
I agree with the points you made before, the intellectual and the spiritual enlightenment. Of course, the national principles, but for me, it's mostly like we see what everyone else is doing with their nation.
Yeah.
Right. So you would think to do the same would be natural to do the same.
Mm.
See, the Chinese community building their nation. Right?
Yeah.
It's one human race, many nations, right? So if you know that you're part of something, why leave or go do something outside of that? Why not just come and do it as a collective?
Mm-hmm.
So that's what keeps me from coming back. The spiritual enlightenment and it's like a family too.
Right.
It's a lot to explain, but just sum it up,
yeah.
I agree. I agree. Personally, like for me, as far as coming to the physical building, it's needed because we can't have everything online where it could possibly be watched or everything like that. We need to have like in a sense like alone time. It's like the prophet said, everybody needs a secret.
Mm-hmm.
So you can't have a secret online.
Right.
You can't have a secret having YouTube Live and having the honorary members, like they need to get involved, but at the same time it's like, well, the ones that are near and dear, the ones that we can touch and shake hands with, it's needed.
Yeah.
But other than the meeting, the sharing of energy,
Mm-hmm.
it gets, for me personally, it gets difficult being around a whole bunch of, I would say people who just don't know. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
It gets difficult at times.
Yeah.
It's like, for me, it's like going out into the sun, coming to the temple.
Yeah.
Because I'm around, I'm getting recharged.
Right.
I'm around people I'm around like minds.
Yeah, we talk about that all the time. Just the whole idea of being here on Sunday so that you can get the energy for the week, to get through the week. And then Sunday, you're plugging yourself back in again to recharge. And again, for that same thing that, we get here, we experience this, bliss of being around Moors or whatever. And then in an instant, it's gone. And then you're back to dealing with whatever the hell is out there. You know what I mean? Yeah. Yeah. You got anything, Omar?
No, I would just say that I'm here from the perspective of understanding that all of the different paths of kind of the abuses that have happened to me have led to understanding that I'm a prisoner of war, that our land has been occupied, and that I'm looking at the reconstituting of a nation that has that is been put on pause.
Mm-hmm.
So I see it from the perspective of at what you see every other nation doing in terms of how they honor and fight. As I said, I liken us to the Ukrainians. Really, we have all that bombing and shelling. That shit just happened 100 years ago.
Yeah.
100 years ago. You think because we don't see any craters out there that this wasn't a war like that. We also don't think that this war still is on.
I think that's the biggest thing. We don't think the war is on still. Think because we could go to.
But the other thing I'm saying, we've been put under a spell until we can identify, I was reading in this book the other day that was saying that it is your history, that it is your story, your past that is your strength.
Mm-hmm.
The fact that they took that away from you and that you are, it's, as I said, I liken it to a piece of wood, a small piece of driftwood on an ocean. You have nothing mooring you to anything, so you therefore cannot grow. So anyways, that's what I see this about.
Mm-hmm.
And also I was saying this to someone earlier today, that it is absolutely necessary. What you're seeing now is the fact that society, from my perspective, is falling down because there is no further, because we are the further. We haven't stepped up. So it's left in the basal place that we're at, which is war. And they've adapted it a bit for this little medical thing, but it's really, as I said, this is the organization that is flexing its might, showing you that at any time we can lock you down on some nonsense. This was a test run. This is the shock that they talk about in the King Alfred plan.
Yeah, the shock test. Yeah.
That's the shock test. And then the war right after, just to show you that it's really about the military complex running this stuff. And now you're seeing all these little skirmishes. It's a joke. But they're going to keep doing it. You know, somehow now we're confused. There's a war again? Why? On what? With Russia? Someone was saying this, some European guy was saying this the other day. But hold on, 30 years ago, it was the Red Army.
Yeah.
Remember 30 years ago, Red Dawn and the Ruskies and Sylvester Stallone.
Belushi and
Yeah, that whole thing, the whole arms. Yeah, how was the one with Stallone and the big Russian?
Oh yeah.
Stallone, Rocky 3, all that stuff. There's all that indoctrination rhetoric stuff, propaganda. Now all of a sudden the Russians are here and they're shutting shit off. The same guy's owning up half the world.
Mm-hmm.
Crazy. It's nuts. But anyways, as I said, we have to focus on ourselves first. And that's the problem. We still can't get over this hump of unity.
Yeah.
I yield.
So, after considering the needs of the body, we must recognize those of the mental expression of the indwelling real self. We must learn to discriminate and recognize those thoughts and desires which well up in our minds from the subconscious mind of the animal self whose seat is the solar planet. I read all that already. If the mind grows discouraged at the seeming lack of conditions for peace, harmony, and spiritual advance, point out to it the analogy of nature. Where does the rose get its nourishment and the materials for its growth and development? All the materials needed to put forth leaf and bud, blossom and perfume, out of the commonplace materials of its environment, yet not out of the materials themselves, but out of the divine life force that is back of all. How does it perform this miracle of transmutation? By keeping confident and poised and allowing the one life to flow through it in perfect harmony to manifest its destiny. Therefore, in times of doubt and depression, we should say to ourselves, I will keep so calm and poised, so cheerful and confident, and in such close touch with the stream of the divine Christ force within me, that I shall draw all the things to me that are needed for my growth and development, for strengthening my roots and perfecting my blossoming. But to do so, I must open my heart to the Son of Righteousness and allow the Christ force to manifest through me in thought, word, and deed, and I may express my inner or real self, thus fulfill my destiny. Remember that one of the fundamental laws of mind is that every thought tends to express itself in actions unless counteracted or neutralized by an opposite thought of greater power. Therefore, we must refuse to think the kind of thoughts we do not wish expressed through us, but never fight them, for to do so, we are concentrating upon them and giving them greater power. Instead of resisting or fighting them, even to pray over them, we must simply turn our minds away from them by concentrating on and filling our minds with the opposite kind of thought, one which we do wish to have expressed to us. Another fundamental law is that every thought we admit into our minds and contemplate, we give power over us. We do not have to admit into our minds, contemplate, and go over and over every thought that may arise in or be presented in our consciousness. We can turn away from and refuse to dwell upon those thoughts which do not measure up to the ideals of our life. Therefore, remember that we do not have to admit or contemplate evil thoughts unless we choose to do so. Learn these rules by heart. So again, going back to Juali making reference to us having higher self, lower self, and what higher self is, what lower self is, and the idea of not getting caught in battling the lower self. Get caught in strengthening the higher self. That'll be the battle that'll be battling the lower self. Get in positive thought more when negative things happen, opposed to dwelling on how are we going to get over the negative thing. You just brought the negative thing again. Well, this negative thing is, or you just brought the negative thing again. You know, having affirmations that something happens, you just pull them out and you could reference them as a way to balance out the energies that we might be going through or that we might be receiving. Because a lot of like we're talking about with the pandemic and the Russia-Ukraine thing and all that stuff they're doing is to stimulate people's thought in directions where you shouldn't even be going there. You know what I mean? We aren't in Russia or Ukraine that should have an effect on us like that. You know what I mean?
Not only that, hold on, when you think about it, that's what's happening here. Why isn't there any, when you really think about it from our perspective, we are the Ukraine of over here.
Yeah.
I don't know. Anyways, that's how I start to look at it.
As well as when we look at the with the whole thing with the pandemic, and then they're about to lift stuff or whatever, and then the people who went with it are now trying to stop the stuff from being lifted or whatever. They're saying no, like you have to keep masks on and you have to be safe, and you know, what if something happens and all this stuff, when I thought you wanted this stuff to be over. I thought this stuff is supposed to be done. Well, they're saying that it's done. So what more do you want? You're trying to keep us under this mental enslavement, you know, this medical mental enslavement,
I think it's also,
or medical military mental enslavement.
I think also, though, what's very, very apparent is that it just shows the fragility of the human psyche.
Yeah.
In a real way. That, I mean, though this has been prolonged, but you know, within 2 years, you know, but this is some of the stuff that this is the testing and the stuff that they talk about how you can shift, you know, cultures and people, you know, either with force like they're doing, or in subtle ways. But you know, in not being aware of them is our first mistake. And this is also part of what this movement is about. Understanding that what we thought was really going on isn't what's really going on, and it's something else that needs just as much attention to be paid to it. Anyways, I yield.
The rational mind. Oh yeah, somebody had something? The rational mind should always look up to and receive its inspiration not from our disembodied friends or from the thoughts of others, but from the superconsciousness or spiritual mind of the real self. Then, by means of the higher illumination thus received, it should guide the activities of the personality and also reach down and train and control the subconscious mind. The spirit mind is always the court of last appeal, for stored up in it is the experience or lessons learned from all past incarnations. And this experience, it seeks to impress upon the rational mind of the personality if we will only listen, respond, and give it expression. Conscience is the steady pressure of the consciousness of the spiritual mind, which all feel to a greater or lesser degree. It is the consciousness of the real self reflected upon the rational mind for the purpose of illuminating and guiding the personality. In the earlier stages of spiritual unfoldment, it manifests simply as a strong impression of right or wrong, to do or not to do, without giving explanations, reasons, or arguments. But as the aspirant becomes conscious of his real self and seeks to become one with and express it, gradually the divine self is able to speak to him, direct and guide, admonish, encourage, or rebuke in a definite way. So realize that in getting into this realm of information, that it's one, it's a different frequency, and then two, you're led to different, you're led to higher realizations when you start involving yourself in the Moorish paradigm. And we realize that with people who don't study as much, or people who aren't fully there in their real self, they always go after the fake self, and then the fake self would lead them to buying some package, 20 grand. I mean, like, why you even going there? Like, why? How did something not register in your mind to say, hold on a second, why am I paying this 10 grand or 20 grand or 500 or whatever the case is? When Juali talks about people's deeds and know them by what they do, and you see people do certain things and you say, well, why would people, especially Moors who are supposed to know better, go with these people doing these messed up deeds, that also have turbans on and whatever like that. And then now you're looking at them, well, why would they even go into that realm? Do they have a lack of knowledge of who they really are? If they're going to go to the side of sell a package or sell some cards or, make up some BS and try to sell that, opposed to, getting with some Moors who are already selling something and help them sell some more stuff that they're already selling, right? The conscience is the steady pressure of the consciousness of the spiritual mind, which all feel to a greater or lesser degree. Right? So when you're in tune to the point of hearing the conscience tell you, or you know what, you should probably not go that route. You should probably, some of the Moors who have they have the nationality paperwork, then they have nationality card. And there might be an instance where, you're not going to present the card. You're just going to give them the papers. You know what I mean? It's not even going to be bringing the card out, because in certain situations, it might just be a brief that they need. They don't need the fullness of what it is the point you're trying to make. They just need a brief to say, oh, well, blah, blah, blah. Okay, fine, sure, no problem, right? The idea of the strong impression of right or wrong that the real self gives to the flesh self, that again, once we're studying and we're in tune with certain things, you're gonna start being spoken to by the higher energies. And once the higher energies start talking to you and then you don't listen to that, then you're really going to be in issues, right? Worse than if you would have just been dumb nigger doing some stuff, right?
Be good.
Please more. All these phases of the self and the forces which beat upon it should be read about and studied, but they cannot be mastered by the intellect alone or by the unaided powers of the personality. Only as the knower, the thinker, the real self is recognized and given supreme direction of our lives can they be really known in the mystic sense, i.e., as a personal realization and comprehension. This knower, this thinker, this self, this I am stands in the center of our individual universe, just as the sun is in the center of the physical universe and is the ruler over it, the source of its life, light, and power. In fact, it is the marker of our heaven and our earth, the evolver of our personal self, and is also its redeemer. And because this real self is the ambassador of the Christ and is of the same essence of the cosmic Christ, which vitalizes all divisions of the vast universe through acquaintance, realization, and correlation with this self, we can enter into an understanding of those cosmic centers of life, force, and consciousness, which have their miniature centers and points of contact within our bodies. So a good reference point with that is Jewel Pukram, Seven Circuits of the Brain, and the idea that the people have constantly been revolving on the animal brain, which is why it's animalistic out there, and they've moved away from the higher aspects of the brain activity. Which again, going back to this, the Christ consciousness is where we want to get to. We want to get to the part, as Drew Ali said, that man and Allah are one. The man who has thus found himself through realization and correlation with this inner self has found the Christ enthroned in the midst of his universe, and by identifying his consciousness with that indwelling Christ consciousness, he can enter into the consciousness of all things in the vast universe, hence can learn to know himself as those forces manifest in his personal universe or microcosm. In nature, we find the mighty Christ principle expressing harmoniously according to the great law of manifestation, vitalizing and bringing into manifestation the ideals of the divine mind. And as we learn to identify ourselves with the Christ in us, we aid it in bringing forth in us the divine ideals until we reach the point where we are able to realize and know that we are sons of God. For as many as are led by the Spirit of God, there are the sons of God. And we go back again to Juali's time, ancient times, and we see how much they're bombarding our reality with things to keep us all over the place. Like when we think about in ancient times, was there genetically modified stuff? Was there bad literature? Like was there people out there putting out wrong info? You know what I mean? How much closer were the ancients to the forces of nature than when we are? You know what I mean? Like we're talking about the different gates, and acknowledging that, well, different gates have powers that you can actually tap into these realms. Meditating, you could tap in to realms. Having some type of psychedelic experience will tap you into realms that would allow you to open up the Christ consciousness, that would allow you to tap into the divine mind, that would allow you to escape what they say is a reality and actually deal with the reality that the ancestors dealt with. And when you start realizing how far behind we are based on where their mindset was, we recognize with Drew Ali saying, go back to that mind. Because only if you go back to that mind will you really see what everything is for what it is, opposed to what we've been told or assume it to be. After the Christ has been born in the heart of man, has been laid among the animals in the manger of his physical existence, wrapped in swaddling bands of mind stuff, subconsciously manifesting in the astral and awakening and manifesting in his spiritual nature, then may the Jesus man, the divine physician, the healer, be said to have come to earth in our lives. For only as the personal man is taught to follow the Jesus life can the Christ manifest consciously in him. Like the story of Jesus, we must pass through all phases of that life. We must be the carpenter's son, constructively doing his duty in the lowly station of life in which he finds himself striving to build his temple by compass and square. Yet through the power of the Christ, whose swaddling bands of consciousness he is day by day unwrapping, he must learn that all events that come to him are but the carpenter's tools, with which he must carve out his temple and accomplish the works of his Father. Right? So again, with regard to perspective, right? Juali giving us the chapter on the carpenter's tools, and using the carpenter's tools, as they're saying, he must carve out his temple and accomplish the works of his Father, and all the events that come to him are but the carpenter's tools. So all the situations that happen is about being able to know what tool to pull out in order to assist you with solving whatever issue, whatever problem, whatever, you know what I mean, we're going through. He must remain in the obscurity of Egypt for a season while Herod, the king of desire, who rules the personality, seeks to slay him, and who is ultimately to become the ruler of the life. He must heal the sick, cleanse the lepers, and feed the multitude within his own body with spiritual food. He must strive, he must suffer, he must be misunderstood and condemned, yet never must he forget his real mission. He must hang upon the cross of material conditions until, in the very depths of his being, in the agony of the higher consciousness that has been born within him, that consciousness which strives to uncover and reveal the Christ child in a world that cannot understand, he cries out, "I thirst." In one aspect, this is the thirst of the despairing personality for the old life in the world and its seeming satisfaction, its happiness and security. But in another and higher sense, it is the cry of the awakened man for some more wisdom. How best to do the works of his Father? How best to lift up the Christ light that all men shall be drawn into radiance of that light? He realizes the mighty power of the Christhood within him and thirsts for the ability to manifest it without crucifying it. But he finds the task too great and lays down the burden, crying, "It is finished. Father, into thy hands I commend my spirit." Only when the awakened personality realizes that it cannot achieve through its own intellectual powers the destiny that has been glimpsed, and places all the ardor and enthusiasm of his desire to accomplish into the hands, symbols of the power to accomplish of the Father, the real self, and ceases to struggle, it is the crucifixion over. As as you he realizes the mighty power of the priesthood within him and thirsts for the ability to manifest it without crucifying it. But he finds the task too great and lays down the burden, crying it is over. You can't lay down the burden. We can't see that our people aren't waking up, or they're too asleep, or and then go back to the state where the prophet found us or whatever, claiming that this stuff isn't working, because it's really about the individual. It's really about know thyself. It's not about know some other stuff going on out there. Know thyself first, and then you get to experience certain things that would allow you to see that, okay, well, knowing thyself is definitely where it's at. Like somebody said in the chat, what are we here for? To know thyself. Right? That's one of the things that, among the list of things that we're going to come, we ask all these different Moors what they're here for. Some things are going to be a repetitive theme. Now, one of those things has to be that, we're here to know ourselves better than we knew ourselves before we came in these doors, or before we bumped into that first Moor who put us on to whatever they put us on, right? Only when the awakened personality realizes that it cannot achieve through its own intellectual powers the destiny that has been glimpsed, and places all the ardor and enthusiasm of his desire to accomplish into the hands of the Father, the real self, and ceases to struggle, is the crucifixion over. Right? This is the most important step in the soul's unfoldment. We may think that when we reach great heights of mastery, when we can rule the elements, use our psychic faculties, levitate the body, etc., we have taken wonderful steps. But the most important step that can be taken by man is that symbolized by the crucifixion, namely, when the personal man has learned through great suffering that no matter how unselfish or devoted, no matter how great the work he is doing, he cannot make the final attainment in his own strength. He must be willing to be crucified, not rejoicing in the crucifixion as a sign of his superiority over others, but recognizing that it is only a crucifixion of the lower man, that the glory of the Christ within might shine forth and be better. In fact, the Christ could accomplish his work more perfectly without the distraction which the suffering of the personality brings upon him, if the personality could learn and respond without the crucifixion. Oh, this crucifixion through which humanity insists on passing, how the great physician, the healer of souls, struggles with the personality and hangs upon the cross of agony. What is it all for? It is to awaken in intellectual man an abiding sense of the indwelling divinity and its power to overcome all things. Once the opposition of the personality has ceased, he must realize that he is something more than man, that there is something his cultured mind cannot grasp, which must come to a revelation from the heart. Right? Going back again to that frequency of that love frequency, that we have to accept and acknowledge all the struggles, all the suffering, all the things that we're going through. This is the lower self reaching the lowest lows in order to reach the highest highs. Similar to our nation, having to reach the lowest lows. Everybody had to be Negro, black, color before we can come back to some realization of who it is that we are. Right? Peace, more Islam. He must realize that he is something more than man, that there is something his cultured mind cannot grasp, which must come as a revelation from the heart. He must call upon the Christ within, must yield up the sense of his sufficiency and superiority. For his God, the intellect, has forsaken him. Cry he never so loud. As we found at the beginning of this chapter, man being a universe in himself, every part and division of his nature has its own inhabitants. In his intellectual world, he is not tempted from without, but from within. He is not sent down to the lower worlds to be sent upon by powers of evil, demons, elementals, creatures of which he has no consciousness and consequently no power to conquer. Everything that comes thus to tempt him is an inhabitant of his own mental world. For through the creative power of his thought force, he has peopled his world with all kinds of creations which seek expression through him. And he has thus opened the door to all the corresponding forces in the surrounding world. His tempters are creatures of his own fashioning, living upon the tender leaves of his tree of life, has put forth just as the infinitesimal lives that the microscope reveals feed upon the leaves of the tree if allowed to go unchecked and destroy it. Right, so that's part of the thing that we're always talking about, that with the nation as a whole, a lot of individuals fall victim to the creatures of their own fashioning, and then they start thinking that, well, this Moorish thing is for me to pick a leaf off, but it's a sapling. It's not even a tree yet to be picking leaves off like that, right? And the more that individuals don't allow themselves to grow, then whatever external is not going to grow either. And then they're looking at it from that way, this way, that, well, the Moorish paradigm, and then they try to get everything they can from the Moors, opposed to feeding it and allowing it to be something more than what it is that they see it as, right? And we deal with that in every aspect of the existence. Like saying, the tempters, the creatures of his own fashioning, everything that comes thus to tempt him is an inhabitant of his own mental world. And if we're talking about a mental world, and we look at our world, and then we talk about the inhabitants of our world, and we go to different countries and different lands or whatever like that, then what do you think the thought world consists of, right? If we're talking about, or if you're talking about the mental world, and we're being tempted by our thoughts that have manifested out there, and then we're thinking that it's something out there that's tempting us, when all the stuff out there is a reflection of what's within ourselves. Right?
So the only thing that I heard in duckets is growth.
You're right. Yep.
Same thing, right?
Yep. Exact same thing. He has permitted his lower self to lead in procession all the forces and inhabitants of his world, because it has put forth a great intellectual branch which reaches up into the mental world, while the real self, the divine being within, remains imprisoned within the world, realizing its own godhood, yet unable to induce the personality to manifest it. But just as our physical bodies and our astral and mental worlds have their inhabitants, so does the spiritual world of every individual have its inhabitants. The real self in the spiritual world has many angelic beings and forces attached to him because they inhabit this world, although most of us are quite unaware of it. Yet, if we will open up the door to them, as we do to the inhabitants of the lower worlds, they will just as surely minister to us and manifest to us, not destructively, bringing about in harmony and suffering, but constructively, bringing about harmony and joy. Therefore, as we learn to know ourselves and our creations in our worlds, we will end the crucifixion by saying of all our personal reliance on outer conditions and forces, it is finished. Into the hands of my divine self I commit my spirit. Then we will begin to open our consciousness to the angelic forces from the spiritual world and will know ourselves as sons of God in the process of unfoldment and manifestation, and learn to manifest the real self as wholeheartedly and completely as we have hitherto manifested the lower self of personality. So again, the idea of the real self in the spiritual world has many angelic beings and forces attached to him because they inhabit his world, although most of us are quite unaware of it. Right? So all the experience that we had being in the Moorish mindset, right? And then thinking back to the Negro Black mindset, we can clearly through experience recognize that the angels work with the Moorish paradigm more than working with the Negro Black color paradigm where we came from, just from our experience, just from conversations with people, just from even when we go to the abuse of power of colonials and stuff like that. There's certain experiences that we had with those people that, if you're a black guy, you're getting taken, or you're getting your ass beat, or something. It wouldn't go down how it went down when you presented yourself as a Moor, right? As well. Yet, if we will open up the door to them, as we do to the inhabitants of our lower worlds, they will just as surely minister to us and manifest to us, not destructively, but constructively. So the idea of these inhabitants of our lower worlds that we're consumed by, right? And the more that, and I realize this probably like right coming into this, that in the old mind, there's definitely a block as far as connection to the divine, connection to, because you don't fully grasp that it exists because of the lack of knowledge, but the experiences don't inspire you enough to go out and seek. So I keep remembering of almost crashing the car and being told in the little voice to brake, just being told to brake, and braking, and then guy runs the thing. That if I had kept going, it would have been T-bone, right? It would have happened, guaranteed. And that vehicle was bigger than mine, so who knows where it would have went. But the fact that I was studying metaphysics and whatever at the time, knowing that little voice might talk or might pop up and say something, that I was open to hearing it, just because I was studying in the metaphysical realm, right? And it was similar to sixth sense, spidey sense, or whatever the case is. Had the green light and all that, but something just said break. Being in that frame of mind as a more is way more angels popping out of everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Every instance there's something. Every interaction there's some type of angelic relationship that happens that puts you back on course, where as soon as you start straying off, here comes the angel to sway you back on where you're supposed to be, right? And again, it's realizing that there's real self, there's divine self, there's Christ consciousness, there's lower vibratory things that are all happening at the same time. This microcosm and macrocosm working in this chaotic harmony. That it's a blessing to be able to be in the place where we can know and experience these things and not be swayed. We've come too far to realize, even with your situation, when they said they'll let you keep the car. You know what I mean? Where in every other situation, that's they're taking your stuff. You know what I mean? Just because, right? And again, it has to do with the individual's frequency and where that individual is on the path. There's instances where, like when we look at the Moorish militia situation, and we know that they should have got shot up on the highway if we're really looking at it from the perspective of these people looking at they're a threat and all that stuff. Then stuff shouldn't have been people getting arrested or whatever. It should have been news about these people got murdered or they got killed because of some, you know what I mean? However they were going to put it, there had to be some type of divine intervention for that to happen how it did, with no shots fired, nobody getting injured or whatever like that. But then, the other side of it is that the forces that are in the lower realms are also working overtime, triple time, to make sure that this stuff doesn't go completely the way that it's supposed to go, that they're going to have their little hands in it to make sure that it doesn't register how it's supposed to register, right? Every idea, and again, going back to this thing of man knowing themselves, we know that the individuals that were heading Moorish militia knew their self. They weren't dumb people, right? They weren't people who are pushing the envelope the way that they're supposed to. Right? They were doing what their higher selves told them to do. Right? There was no idea of Moorish militia before them. There were Moors bearing arms all over the place, but something organized that Moors are part of, that everybody else has one. Why shouldn't we? Right? That's divine intervention. What made that manifest? Yeah, Garvey too. Right? The whole point of us protecting ourselves. They know. Right? We have to be the ones that know what it's about. Majority of, if we look at it from the spiritual perspective, there's those who are there. They're in that realm, and then that's where they're at. when we look at from the law perspective or the self-governing perspective, when you look at we were doing research on trying to do the insurance company, and then we find out that Mennonites have their own insurance company. Like they have their own. They don't go to somebody else to get insurance. They have their own Mennonite insurance company, right? For themselves and those people who are part of their whatever. But you know, who do they know that gave them their $1 million to start? Because you need that off the top to start, right? Who do they know? Was it another Mennonite? Was it somebody who's outside of that realm that assisted them? You know, we always bring up with the Ashkenazis having their own blood bank. That they only donate blood to their blood bank. They're not going to outside Jewish blood banks to go give or get blood. They have their own that they go to. You know what I mean? How do they have their own that they do that? You know, we go down to Gerard or whatever, and the Hindus have that whole spot right now. That how did they? Is it that they're just supporting their own stuff that made them have that? Did they come here with 20 million to be able to do that? Did government give it to them? How did they get access to these things that it seems like, you know, it's some far-reaching stuff for us to get? You know what I mean? Even though there's institutions that are putting it out there that, yeah, we're here to help and we're supposed to do this and we're supposed to do that, and then when you check them on what they're supposed to do, and they're not doing it. Like we were checking out what is it? The Congress of Indian whatever. Congress of Aboriginal People, and then you go check the members of this Congress, and everybody's a European. Everybody. There's not one individual on there that's looking like, you know, they kind of have some native in them or whatever like that. Everybody's straight European, right? So they're doing something to get what it is that they're getting. You know what I mean? And we have to start tapping into different avenues in order for us to get what we're supposed to get. So like we're saying, you know, doing our solstice acknowledgements, you know, reading our Quran more or something, you know, putting energy toward the right things, like with us getting this spot, from moving from over there to over here. It was putting the energy out there. It was saying, you know, we want to change as a collective. And out of the collective, you know, 20% of us are going to say, we're going to put up 100 a month till we have this finance to do what we're supposed to do. We're just going to put it in, and we're not even going to question anything. We're just going to put it. We need a new spot. We're just going to put it. It was days. It was days after leaving over there that this spot came open. Just from people being on the frequency, people being on the mindset and putting the energy toward it. A spot opened up across the street for us to do what we're supposed to do, right? And again, going through the motions again. Well, we need to get the floor fixed, and then here comes somebody who knows how to do the floor. And then, well, we need to whatever. Here comes somebody who knows how to, you know, put up banisters and do drywall and do whatever. You know, we need whatever. Here comes somebody saying, oh yeah, well, here's, you know, 5,000 just because I haven't been here in 2 years and I just wanted to pay my back stuff. Here's $5,000. Just like that. Not asking them for anything, and then not seeing them after that ever again. You know, that's the same thing with these angels that we're talking about, that you don't know how it's going to happen. But once we're vibrating on the frequency, it has to happen. It must happen. The only way that it's going to happen is by us dealing with it ourselves. And once we start looking at everybody else as an example, we were talking about that too when we were coming up here. How come all these different religious whoever's are able to get stuff, right? The up on the 400 where they got that Hindu temple by Kipling up there. They have that Hindu temple where they brought all their marble or whatever from Italy to build that. You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean you didn't use stuff here? What do you mean you built it and then you cut it up into pieces and then you shipped it here and then put it together like a puzzle? The hell you mean? That's what you did. You know, as another nation. This is the lengths that they went to make sure when they come to this foreign place, they have their temple here. Right? The one on Brimley. Right? There's the one on Brimley where we shot the invasion video at. And we were talking with them. Oh yeah, we built this by hand. Like all the members of this quote unquote temple were part of helping build this place. Right? And then not only that, they also had a spot next to it where everybody stayed at while they were building the spot. So there's no you're leaving the vicinity at the end of the day. Everybody just go into the little hut right there, whether there's floor they're sleeping on or whatever the case is, whatever sacrifice they're making, so that they can, 6 a.m., everybody's at the spot ready to work. They're not waiting for 12 people to show up because they woke up late and whatever like that. Everybody's at the spot so we can get this work done. Right? So we find that it appears like other people are connected. Right? Other people are connected, and the Moors are less connected, and it could be the colonists knowing exactly what's going to go down if they even if it's 5 Moors and they give them something. They'll do more than majority of these Negroes who've been getting finance for the past 10, 20 years, right? Getting ample amounts of finance to try to fix this problem that never seems to get fixed. The idea of them working together to stop the Moors, and then the Moors can't even get together. We were talking about that on the way up here too. How hard it is to say, okay, let's get all the Moors together. And then we make the call, and then whoever shows up. And then the ones who don't show up is because, oh well, they don't like him or they don't like her, or well, they teach this way or they teach that way or whatever like that. When again, there's supposed to be a standard thing that brings us together. The Holy Covenant bring us together. You recognize that? Yeah, okay. You recognize Quran, recognize Juali, recognize that we're Moors, we're not Negro, black, colored. What else is there for us to unify about? Is there really something else? You know what I mean? And if there isn't anything else, then why isn't the unity how it's supposed to be when we look at all the other nations? Even when we look at Ukraine and them people, right? People said, yo, we're not going anywhere. We'll stay here, die for our land. If that's what it's gonna be. We're not going somewhere else. You know what I mean? We're not gonna flee. Women and children flee. Everybody else go grab something. And then even have women or whatever saying, well, I ain't leaving. You know what I mean? We're gonna stay here and fight. Because this is ours to fight for. And again, Drew Ali making reference of protecting your prophet and your temple, realizing that this is ours. This is ours for us to do something with. Whether we do something with it or not is a whole different thing. But we can't say that the standard wasn't set for us to be able to put some things in order so that we can have some things. You know. Any comments, questions? If you pull up your Quran, chapter 36, you'll know thyself and see how relatable Drew Ali is to the message of Aquaria. And again, the whole thing with no unity or whatever like that and stuff. Don't think that it's we're compromised and this stuff can't happen. We're the ones who are unified are unified. It's everybody else that needs to get on board with what's going down. Right? The ones who are in the know with regard to what the truth of our nationality and birthrights is are already in tune with each other. It's everybody else who has to get down. Holy instructions from the prophet, know thyself. Weak and ignorant as thou art, O man, humble as thou ought to be, O child of the dust, wilt thou raise thy thoughts to infinite wisdom? Wouldst thou see omnipotence displayed before thee? Contemplate thine frame. Fearfully and wonderfully art thou made. Praise therefore thy Creator with awe, and rejoice before him with reverence. Wherefore of all the creatures art thou only erect, but that thou shouldst behold his works? Wherefore art thou to behold, but that thou mayest admire them? Wherefore to admire thou mayest adore there and thy Creator? Wherefore is consciousness reposed on thee alone, and whence is it derived to thee? Is it not in flesh? It is not in flesh to think. It is not in bones to reason. The lion knoweth not that worms shall eat him. The ox perceiveth not that he is fed for slaughter. Something is added to thee, unlike to what thou seest. Something informs thy clay, higher than all of the objects of thy senses. Behold, what is it? The body remaineth perfect after it is fled. Therefore, it is no part of it. It is immaterial. Therefore, it is eternal. It is free to act. Therefore, it is accountable for its actions. Knoweth the ass the use of food, because his teeth mow down the herbage? Or standeth the crocodile erect, although his backbone is as straight as thine? Allah formed thee as he formed these. After them all wert thou created. Superiority and command were given thee over all, and in his own breath did he communicate to thee the principle of knowledge. Know thyself and the pride of his creation, the lime uniting divinity and matter. Behold, a part of Allah himself within thee. Remember thine own dignity, nor dare descend to evil or to meanness. Who planted terror in the tail of the serpent? Who clothed the neck of the horse with thunder? Even he who hath instructed these to crush to one under thy feet, and to tame the other to thy purpose. Wherefore is consciousness reposed on thee alone, and whence is it derived to thee? It is not in flesh to think. It is not in bones to reason. The lion knoweth not that worms shall eat him. The ox perceiveth not that he is fed to slaughter. So know thyself is getting to us realizing that we're higher beings than all the other beings. Chapter 1. That there's a hierarchy of the consciousness. There's a hierarchy of know thyself. You know, Animals know themselves to degrees. Fish know themselves to their degree, right? Insects, birds know themselves to their degree. And then we have a higher level of recognition from from the ancestral forces, from the different consciousness, from the different realms of existence. We can perceive things so much different, and it's almost like the forces against us want us to not perceive ourselves as the higher being, and have us thinking that we're limited to what we think that we can manifest, not that everything that the mind can perceive could be manifested. Like we use the example of the pyramid builders. Even I was watching a comedy show. A brother was talking about Noah had to be a Mexican because he built the ark on his own or whatever. And if you ask a brother to build an ark, the brother's going to be standing like, "You mean just me? You mean I'm the one that has to do all this? No help or whatever, right?" So once the mind could perceive it, I was saying that the idea of building the pyramids, and what it takes, and 50-ton bricks, and what it really entails to make this monument, and what mindset do you have to say you're going to build one of those? Where's your mind at? I mean, how close are you to divine to even fathom the thought of, our building is going to be pyramid, and then that stuff's going to sit there and it's going to be there for forever. The only thing that's going to destroy that is the sand covers it. Nothing just blowing that down. No plane is crashing into that and then it's falling into the ground or whatever like that. But we've been blessed. We've been blessed with a certain ability, and it speaks to how much the Creator looked out for us over other things in existence. And when are we gonna take that power that we have and do with it what's supposed to be done? As we know, it's gonna take work, because these people did a number on us to get us to be in this place where we don't know ourselves, and we can't even really comprehend ourselves as far as our higher existence. You know what I mean? It's a piece of work that they did on us. So, we want to continue to keep the Moors studying what was presented to them, so that we can be the inspiration for others to realize that there's something here, and not that they have to see something, but it's going to be in our actions. Just like you're saying, like last week, just walking on the street, went to get some food, bumped into some people, and they're fascinated. They didn't see a Moorish hospital or something like that to be interested, with the Muslims. They didn't see a Moorish whatever to be like, oh wow, yeah, let's see what this is about. They just saw more. The more vibrating on the right frequency that allowed them to be approachable, allowed them to ask questions, allowed them to want to know more. How many people have we engaged that you hit them up for an hour, and then that's the last time you heard from them? You didn't see them ever again after that. And then when you do see them again, they're further off than they were when they seen you the first time. You know what I mean? That they're absolutely gone now. They were a little gone before. Now they're straight off the deep end before, right? Or later on. there's a level there's a level of trust that we have in what Juali presented to us, and we know that it's limited to those who are on that mindset, and it's hard to convince the horse to drink. We don't need to convince them. All we need to do is just give them the water, do whatever it is that they're gonna do, and then we're gonna go back to doing what it is that we're supposed to be doing. Right. I know we usually have more than this, but I know Brother Omar has some moves to make, and with your stuff going on, you said 4 or something today. You trying to be back by? Yeah.
It's 1:40 now. We got another hour.
All right. Was there any other stuff going on that anybody wanted to put out or present or talk about? And the sentiment is acknowledged online. Moors have to be mind over matter. Juali gave us something to shout about, so we should be shouting. Realizing, recognizing that we ourselves are the divine manifestation. All right. It doesn't seem like it's equating for the whole, as far as understanding our nationality and then applying it, right? As individuals, that's a different relationship, right? And I think because of the concentration of the thought with the individual, the things are manifesting better than as the whole. Because as the whole, the consciousness is getting watered down as the whole, because you're dealing with all these different people at different levels, which again goes back to why it is when we say, town hall, we need more at that. We say we're doing, in the park series, need more at that. If there's any type of activities that Moors are doing, that we're there, because there's something about Moors getting together that changes the frequency. That's just what it is. The more that we get together, the more the frequencies are going to change. But again, because of the whole colonial idea, people got work, people got whatever that they got to do, obligations that really shouldn't be their obligations like that, because it's not supposed to be how it is. But being that it's like that, it's going to take, probably doing some more than we thought we had to do. We get to, we were talking about earlier with studying Noah Juali's literature and studying the things that he presented. And we were talking about how things that were presented, we were using the example of the divine constitution and bylaws, that there's additional laws with the bylaws, and that the additional laws and the divine constitution are two different things, yet they're the same thing. You know what I mean? And how is that perceived by the people who are looking at it? Are they seeing it as two different things? We're going through the 101 questionnaire, and it talking about and if Moors want to pull up their 101 so they could check this for themselves or whatever. But we're going through What kind of flag is the Moorish? Red flag, green 5-point star. What do the 5 points represent? Love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. How old is your flag? 10,000 years. What's your holy day? Friday. Why? Friday is the holy day. And then you go back to how old is your flag, and it's actually 100,000 years written there. There's a comma after 10, but there's 4 zeros after the 10, which is 100,000, right? But the repetitive religious mindset has us going with what has been told, when it's actually the flag is 100,000 years old. Now the flag is 100,000 years old, or did somebody put a zero in there? Now if somebody put a zero in there, then why are they changing the stuff, right? Just like when we go through the Quran and you see that there's different reference points with regard to words or whatever. You hold 3 Qurans together and all of them saying the same thing except for this one word, or these 2 words, or these 4 words saying something different, right? So it's imperative that we go through his stuff, we study what he presented. You know, there was times where he's saying, you know, study your Quran and your divine constitution. Then he's saying study your 101 and your divine constitution. And then when you check those are the things with the most grammatical issues, right? The things that he said check are the things with the most grammatical issues. You go to Moorish literature, ain't no issues in that. You know, you go oral statements, there's nothing wrong in that. But these 3 things, divine constitution and bylaws, Holy Quran of Moorish Science Temple, Moorish Holy Temple of Science, and 101, 102 questionnaire, people have been playing games. You know? Is that the reason why stuff is messed up? Because we haven't been reading the right stuff the whole time.
And the 101 you have there, does it say 10,000 years?
Yeah, this one says 100,000. Yeah.
The one look at the one that the Library of Congress has.
Yeah.
10,000.
It says 10,000.
Yeah.
So right.
There's definitely something going on.
Yeah.
And I've been watching documentaries too, where they say it's from 10 to 50,000.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
10 to 50,000.
Yeah. Right. Right. Now again, none of the quote unquote discrepancies is to take away from the Moorish movement whatsoever, or take away from what Noble Jew Ali did or whatever like that. You know.
Friday night, I was trying to break that to Rasta
Mm-hmm.
man, and I had to show him that he thinks that the American flag that was on it.
Yeah.
So I got to show him that it's not.
That's not it. Yeah.
He said, no, but this is Morocco. So I show him that it's here where you are. It's
Yeah.
Morocco, right?
Yeah.
That's the one you see over there, it's not even 80 years old.
Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
like Canada is only 150 something years old.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
And I show them that when they sing that song, when the football game starts, they sing about stars, spangled banner. They
Yeah.
didn't say flag.
Not flag. Definitely didn't say flag.
They didn't use the word flag.
Now, doesn't it definitely have another song that they sing? It's from the house of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Where is Tripoli? Where is Tripoli?
Where's Tripoli? The house of Montezuma.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Any other comments, questions? So again, next Sunday, we're gonna be doing our solstice, our equinox celebration. We're asking Moors if they're attending to be there with their three things that they want to bring into the new year, so that we can burn at the sunrise. And any Moors who are not there, that you still do the ritual, even if you gotta wake up and go back to sleep or whatever. But get up for the 7:20 sunrise on the 20th, so we could bring in our new year. And on the 27th, we're going to be doing our town hall at the temple. So we're requesting Moors to be in attendance for that, as we're not going to be doing it. We're not going to be doing it online. And April, we have Hamilton and Ajax in April. Just connecting with the Moors out there, getting to their spots. And we're also working on a St. Catherine's visit. There's some Underground Railroad stuff out there, Harriet Tubman School, and some other things out in that vicinity of St. Catherine's that we want to go in and touch base with. Yeah, anything else there, Omar?
No.
All right. Before we close out, get one more reading in. Any chapters come to mind? Any Quran chapters?
Full instructions on community.
What instructions on what?
Full instructions from the Prophet on community.
There's no chapter called that.
No.
Social duties?
Social
duties? Chapter 30. Social duties. Holy instructions from the Prophet, the social duties. When thou considerest thy wants, when thou beholdest thy imperfections, acknowledge his goodness, O Son of Humanity, who honored thee with humanity, endued thee with speech, and placed thee in society, to receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations, protection from the injuries, thy enjoyments of the comforts and the pleasure of life. All these thou owest to the assistance of others, and couldst not enjoy but in the bands of society. It is thy duty, therefore, to be a friend to mankind, as it is thy interest that man should be friendly to thee. As the rose breathes sweetness from his own nature, so the heart of a benevolent man produceth good works. He enjoyeth the ease and tranquillity of his own breast, and rejoiceth in the happiness and prosperity of his neighbor. He openeth not his ear unto slander. The faults and the failings of men give a pain to his heart. His desire is to do good, and he researcheth out the occasions thereof. In removing the oppression of another, he relieveth himself. From the largeness of his mind, he comprehendeth in his wishes the happiness of all men. And from the generosity of his heart, he endeavoreth to promote it. Islam. Peace more. Islam. Right? When thou considerest thy wants, when thou beholdest thy imperfections, acknowledge his goodness. O Son of humanity, who honored thee with humanity, endued thee with speech, and placed thee in society to receive and confer reciprocal helps and mutual obligations, protection from the injuries, thy enjoyments of the comforts and the pleasure of life, all these thou owest to the assistance of others, and couldst not enjoy but in the hands of society. Going back to the thing we were saying earlier, that as a body is how we're going to benefit from everything that we have here. As individuals, you can take a little bit here, take a little bit there, and have a decent life. As a body doing that, as a body looking out for each other, as a body recognizing our mutual obligations, recognizing our protection from injuries and the enjoyments of the comforts, as a body, those things will be more fruitful for us as a body. Because again, going back to the whole thing of the thought and having all these individuals on the same thought processing, on the same mental vibration, is going to cause more to manifest than what we think. All right, is going to manifest. You had something? Oh. Any other thoughts on the social duties? It is thy duty, therefore, to be a friend to mankind, as it is thy interest that man should be friendly to thee. And that's the law of reciprocity. Whatever you put that way, it's coming back this way. Do good that way, then good's going to be done to you. Right? Do wrong, then here comes evil. The heart of a benevolent man produceth good works. And again, going back to Juali telling us to learn to love instead of hate. If we love more than we hate, then good works are going to manifest. It's just natural that it's going to go that way. Right? Rejoiceth in the happiness and prosperity of his neighbor. Right, that was the lesson that one of these shows we're talking about, you're supposed to be happy for me, because somebody was mad at somebody or whatever like that, because they got the whatever and somebody else didn't get it. It's like, yo, you're my boy. You're supposed to be. If I'm happy, you're supposed to be happy for me. If I'm going through good, you can't be, why did he get it and all that. You should be rejoicing with them that they got it, whether you got it or not. Go ahead, Mark.
No, it was I think Thursday we were having a conversation. And this Rasta man, he said his son was showing him his check, and he makes good money. So he come and telling us about it, and he's saying, but the way he's saying it, we're looking at it and say, but what are you thinking, bro? What do you mean your son can't become making more money than you? Something not right,
Yeah.
You should be happy to see that your son check is good.
Yeah.
But he's trying to upset, like, you're not supposed to be making money.
Yeah.
And,
That's that jealousy. That jealousy will get you.
Yeah,
from his father
Yeah.
to his son. I don't know if he said to the son, but he come telling us.
right.
We're looking at the picture now. We should be happy for him.
Yeah, he said he felt the way when he was telling you that he's not happy. He wish it was him.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah.
making more than the son because he's older.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
I feel like that's one of those situations where it's like people want to blame something outside of themselves instead of themselves. You know?
Yeah.
They don't want to look at themselves and say that, like, it's my fault I'm not getting paid more than him because of my life and what I did. You know, so they're going to try to look at the son like what's wrong with him? Like, how does he get paid more than me?
Yeah.
You know, but it has nothing to do with him per se, you know, like it's the individual who's mad.
He's looking at the material riches instead of the riches that he has.
The riches within.
It's the riches within that he gave to the son so the son can prosper.
Yeah.
So he's just looking at the material part of it. And not the fact that he played a big part in the son making that amount. I mean, right now, my son, he works for the IS branch in Montreal, which is the money laundering, which is past manager, branch manager, and whole different department where all you do is just check to make sure people are not money laundering money or not doing wrong things in their account. And he makes more money than me, but I mean I'm the one that gave talent. Yeah. I mean, on paper.
Yeah.
On paper, because I have goals and dreams where I'm one of the richest person in the world right now. Based on what I have the riches I have inside. I mean, sometimes I mentioned that I'm a poor man and I'll continue to be a poor man until the whole world see the riches in me. You see. Right, sir.
Did you have any questions or anything like that?
No, not right now. I was listening to you on the way down
On the way,
bus, but then I realized that it was a different episode, basically.
Oh, okay.
Your attire is different. I said that only looks like.
So that wasn't the one.
I said because it started at 12 o'clock and it's not.
Yeah.
Because I had to take care of my mom. She's got dementia, so I gotta make sure she eats lunches before I leave, and then my transmission's gone my vehicle. The bus stop and every stop that I'm not used to.
You know how it goes. You know how it goes.
I'm here. I wanted to be here with you guys.
Islam.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
That's what's up.
Talking about this, like just the other day I had a conversation with my mom. Like basically like my stepfather, he has this thing where, at work, he always wants to look at what the boss is doing. He always wants to look at the boss is never here and the boss is driving this car and this, that, and the third, and it's always my mom has to tell him it's like because he's the boss. Like he invested whatever he invested to get
where he's at
right now. You can't look at the boss
I envy him.
and envy him, like what do you choose to do every weekend? It's not what he chooses to do every weekend.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like you choose to, drink and turn up and and do all that and unwind for the weekend. He chooses to his next venture. He chooses, what is he gonna do with his next dollar?
Yeah.
So you can't look at that guy and look at your life. I think, well, he has something to do with your life. Like, he put himself there.
Yeah.
So,
The only way you can look at it that way is that you are a human being. You can do whatever it's doing for yourself.
Exactly.
You can do the same thing. Just follow someone that has, that has dominated what it is, and then you do the same thing. We God all have the same power within, but we don't use it. We tend to use the lower part of us. Yeah.
It's like we're saying, like it's easy to blame.
Yeah, very easy.
Easy.
To blame. That's even story because even right now I feel away because I'm getting here because I want to be here and I been long looking forward to being around you guys, but then as soon as I get here now, my transmission going, then my package, I left it on the bus again and it's all gone. Oh my God. So I mean, when you're winning sometimes somewhere, you're losing the, but then your win's supposed to make you go, get ahead.
Yeah.
Because whatever level that you reach in life, you're gonna get that level of fight.
Yeah.
It's just like in a, in a video game You know, the first level, of course, is simple.
Yeah. You breeze through that.
Breeze
Yeah,
through that.
yeah.
But when you reach on the 10th level, you're not gonna get, 5-level fight.
Yeah.
You're gonna get 10 or even 11 fight
Yeah.
level. So it's up to you to be able to govern yourself to overcome that.
Right. Oh yeah, and for the equinox event, we're sometimes we do the stay over, but we're doing the 1 day. We're doing the 1 day. We're doing the 1 day event. So you're looking at 2.5 hours at least to Kingston, depending on where in the jurisdiction you're traveling from. And we're looking to be out there for at least 6:30, because the sunrise is 7:20 on the 20th. So we're looking to be out of here, 4:30, 4:30, to be out of here, to be up there for at least 6:30. And then do our ritual and then head back. So if there's any if you want to bring your little thermos or whatever like that, your little thermos and your tea or your porridge or something, or bring your little sandwich for the road, feel free.
I'm sorry, this is what date?
The 20th of March. Every year we do gate acknowledgements. So all the solstices and equinoxes try to get together and do some type of nature ritual, whether it's do a walk or this year we're going to Kingston, just to do something for the energies, for the ancestors, to revitalize Moorish culture, because it seems like, or it had seemed to Brother Omar, that we didn't have too many things that were our own.
Right.
We're always doing somebody else's stuff as far as celebrations or whatever, other than doing our Noble Drew Ali Day and certain things that were standard.
Right.
There were a lot more things dealing with more science that we could have tapped into to just give ourselves some more things to do as a Moorish community.
Heighten the spirit.
Yeah. So these are one of those things.
Right. You mentioned on the 27th that there's going to be a town hall.
Yeah, 27th town hall. That's going to be at the temple.
Okay.
And the town hall is basically for us to let everybody know where we're at,
Right.
see where people are at,
Right.
what we're doing wrong, what we're doing right, what we're doing properly, and that's usually about the same time, 2-3 hours, depending on the subject matter that comes up.
Do you bring guests if they're interested or to hear?
Yeah, that's only for members. The town hall. The town hall is just for members.
Okay.
Yeah. So yeah. Any other comments or questions?
How is the traveling to Kingston?
We're pretty much looking at carpooling. So Moore's finding Moore's and sorting our stuff out, since we're not doing the overnight. Cause remember last time we did the overnight. Yeah. So I'm not sure how many different cars are going out there, but we'll have to get together with each other and figure out who's heading out there and
remember, I guess they can do their ritual here, right?
Yeah, and then if you can't make it, you could do it here. If you can't make it out there, you could still get up, do the sunrise thing, and write down your three things that you want to bring into the new year, and then just burn them and let the ashes go with the sunrise on that day. Other than that, there's no more comments, questions.
You were saying let the ashes go with the sunrise. Are we doing this in the morning?
Yeah,
In the morning?
before sunrise, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
And again, just the whole thing with, you know, the dawning of the new day and it being a new year, you know, get it with the sun manifesting, you know. Islam, Mars.
I feel like even that way too, why the government is doing stuff what they're doing with our new year. Like their out mandated stuff's supposed to be lifted.
21st, 22nd,
yeah.
yeah. All that's the same. Yeah. Making use of our stuff if we're not using it. I would just go ahead, man.
I was gonna say to start that when you notice their tax time, the deadline is always in the new year.
Yeah.
Not in January.
Not January.
They call it New Year.
Yeah.
It's the real New Year.
Bigger than springtime.
Yeah.
Everything is more replenished.
Islam, Mars. 5 on the left, 2 on the right. Allah, the Father of the universe.
Allah, the Father of the universe,
Father of love.
Father of love,
Truth.
truth,
Peace.
peace,
Freedom.
freedom,
And justice.
and justice.
Allah is my protector.
Allah is my protector,
My guide.
my guide,
And my salvation.
and my salvation.
By night.
By night
And by day.
and by day,
Through our holy prophet.
through our holy prophet,
Noble Juali.
Noble Ali,
Islam. Ashir. Peace, Mars. Inor, you got the text message?